think we might see when we're out on the bayou today?
Well, we're right at the cusp of spring on a beautiful, warm, cloudless day, and what we're hoping to see are basking alligators. We have perfect conditions for alligators who are coming out of a long winter's nap on a beautiful sunny spring day such as this to find a place for them to haul out of the water and pull themselves up and expose their full body length to the sunlight in an effort to try to warm their core temperature up. Alligators have been fasting since late fall. Probably October, November is the last time an alligator in Houston area bayous have had a meal. I think he even smiled.
So too. Wow.
Many people may not realize that located right in our own backyard is a collection of wildlife you'd more commonly associate with a national park. Hi, I'm Mark Kramer, Chief Naturalist at Bayou Nature Center, and today we're going to explore the wildlife at the Nature Center.
And I'm Dr. Kathy Garland over here at the University of Houston Clear Lake. I'm here today to talk to Mark about these wonderful and amazing animals that we have right here in our own community. So Mark, tell me exactly what kinds of animals live at Bayou Nature Center.
Well, lots of things that you'd probably expect to find in a place like that. Lots of rabbits and squirrels and skunks and raccoons and possums and armadillos. But also a few things you might not expect to find right in the middle of such a big city.
Well, you were saying that these are national park quality animals. So what are our star animals at Bayou Nature Center that you could see if you went someplace really exotic?
Well, most of them are apex predators, animals that are at the top of the food chain. And they're animals like the American river otter, the osprey, brown pelicans, peregrine falcons, and even bald eagles.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and obviously the one whom we just saw, which is the American alligator, who is kind of iconic for the bayous and the coastal prairies and the wetlands around here, or even almost anywhere in the South.
Yeah, they're the apex predator of the Bayou City, and they are the animal that you would expect to find in just about any type of aquatic environment around here. They're big and they're beautiful, and they've made a slow comeback as the decades have kind of progressed through these years.
A comeback from what?
Well, not so long ago, they were critically imperiled, critically endangered, actually. They were one of the first animals to be placed on the newly formed Endangered Species Act. So because of that federal protection through those regulations, it gave them the protections they needed to slowly come back to the Bayou City.
What happened to them? I mean, what caused them to become endangered in the first place?
Well, it was a combination of different factors. One of them was habitat loss. That's really one of the largest issues ecologically that we face around the world now, is the loss of habitat. And particularly at that point in time, wetland loss was one of the critical habitat losses that we were facing. The other factor that affected alligators was they were being hunted, and not just hunted, but in an unregulated fashion. Mm-hmm. So many animals were hunted because they were valuable to the fashion trade. Alligator leather was used for boots and belts and luggage and a whole host of different things. That's when the Endangered Species Act was formed, and that is that additional layer of regulation that was required to help them recover.
I see. So I know we have some other really wonderful animals in Bayou Nature Center. In fact, you were saying that last time we were talking that the eagles have just come back.
Yeah, that's right. Alligators and eagles all benefited from those protections associated with the Endangered Species Act. And bald eagles have been around Pasadena and the Bayou Nature Center for about a decade now. And because habitat has recovered, because habitats at Bayou Nature Center are such high quality habitats, eagles not only just exist in our area, they're actually thriving now. And one of the ways you can tell that a form of wildlife is thriving is that it's actually reproducing. And we have a nesting pair of bald eagles at Bayou Nature Center.
Yeah. I have animals in my backyard, right? I have squirrels who come by. I have armadillos who pop in now and then. I have opossums that come by. But what's the difference? You know, I've never had a river otter, and hopefully I'm not going to have an alligator or any large animals in my yard, or even really in my neighborhood. What is it that Armand Bayou has for these animals that makes them so comfortable there?
Well, the answer is habitat. Habitat is the key. So all forms of wildlife need habitat, but the habitats at the Nature Center are of very high quality because they've been preserved and restored, and the habitats at Armand Bayou Nature Center are large. And that's another important element because many of these larger species of wildlife have large ranges. They need large pieces of wild land of high quality habitat in order to thrive. The Nature Center is about 2,500 acres, about 4 square miles in size. So that's a large piece of wild land in an urban area. That's the beautiful thing about the Nature Center. It's urban wilderness.
So I'm assuming that these animals, that they travel further than just the Nature Center. For example, the eagles. We'll see them outside the Nature Center sometimes?
Well, eagles, yes. They have very large ranges and will fly many miles in a day's time in order to find food. So some of the animals stay within the Nature Center's range, within those 2,500 acres. But, you know, on the wings of an eagle, it's just a few flaps of the wing to go all the way across Galveston Bay in search of food. So they travel far and wide as they see fit.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to bald eagles, they're actually a fish eagle, just like an osprey, only far bigger. But I was really surprised. I don't know why, but I always assumed that eagles took terrestrial animals mostly. But I think they really like fish. Is that not right?
That is their predominant food, is fish. And it turns out that in Armand Bayou, that is one of those high-quality important habitats, or the aquatic habitats of the estuary of Armand Bayou, that is so rich and diverse with aquatic life, with fish life. And of particular interest on the bayou, the osprey, which is also a fish hawk, feeds only on fish. Eagles and ospreys interact frequently, and often eagles steal fish from the ospreys, which makes it a very dramatic view for people watching
wildlife.
Kind
of a one-sided relationship.
Well, it is. That's right. And eagles are so large and powerful, you know, there's not a huge debate. The ospreys almost always drop their fish, and the eagle wins that battle.
Eagle wins the battle.
A very fun viewing opportunity for us.
Well, I know that we can see some of the animals that are local to Armand Bayou Nature Center if we come out to the facility itself, right? And so now what we want to do is we want to go and look at a video that a couple of our student filmmakers made, and they came out and actually talked to Kristen Hall, who is basically the curator of your animals, and she takes care of all of the display animals at the Nature Center.
Hello, I'm Dakota Dickey, and I'm here with Kristen Hill, and she's the animal care specialist here at Armand Bayou Nature Center. Who do you have here?
We did.
This is our speckled king snake. They're part of a very large family of king snakes. They are called king snakes because they eat other snakes, and they are impervious to venom, so they can eat copperheads and water moccasins.
Okay, and how big do these guys get?
They get to be about 3 to 4 feet is the max.
Okay, and how old is this one? Do you know?
This one we've had since about 2006 or so. Someone actually found it out here, and we brought it in, and we've been using her ever since.
And how do you tell a king snake from another non-venomous snake?
It's difficult to tell, especially since there's so many different varieties. We also have our prairie king snake. This one in particular has very distinct color, and you can see the navy blue and black on top with the goldish speckles, and then the bottom is very, very yellow. They also have the nickname salt and pepper snakes because of that, but that's how you can identify this specific species.
And how do these guys kill their prey?
Since they don't have venom, they're constrictors. So what they do once they realize what prey they want, they strike at it and they immediately wrap their body around it. And once their prey takes a breath, they squeeze even harder until they eventually suffocate their prey, and then they consume it.
Okay, what else can you tell us about this guy?
They live in a wide range of habitats, from lowlands to prairies to forest. This snake in particular prefers wet forests, so that's why they love it here at Armand Bayou, since we have our coastal flatwoods forest. They're very, very opportunistic hunters in the wild. They'll eat frogs, lizards, snakes, rodents.
And so also I heard that snakes played a very big part in the spread of the Black Plague in the medieval era. What can you tell me about that?
That is true. As you know, today in the UK there are no native snakes. That's because back then religious beliefs, they saw snakes as a negative thing, and they killed all of them off. As still true today, these guys play a very important role in controlling rodent populations. So when they decimated the snake population, the rodent population got out of control, and because the rodent population got out of control, so did the flea population. And fleas are the vector for the bubonic plague. So.
That is fascinating. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to be joining you soon.
Right.
So a lot of people don't realize that these animals are living right here in our environment, right here in our beautiful city, that they can come and visit them. Armand Bayou Nature Center is a really special place because of what it gives these animals. Mark, what are the things that really Armand Bayou does that are special? What is special about the habitat there? What does it provide for these animals in terms of all the different things they need?
Well, it has to do with high quality habitat. We talked a little bit about habitat. We haven't really explored much about what habitat really is. And I encourage people to think about habitat as if you would about your own habitat. We're all familiar with Habitat for Humanity. That's our home. So wildlife has a home also. And so within our own homes, we have rooms. We have a kitchen, we have a living room, we have a bedroom, we might have a nursery area where our children stay. So the same is true for wildlife. And wildlife gets its needs met when all of those different rooms are in place. Wildlife needs feeding habitat, for example, a place where it can go to get food. For us, that's the kitchen. It might be the refrigerator. We open the door and the food's there and we know where to know to get it. And you might think about that of a heron and egret walking in the shallow waters along the edge of the marsh as excellent feeding habitat. And after that animal has consumed food, it needs a safe place to kind of go back and relax and digest its food. Lounging habitat is the living room.
Right,
and you might think about that as this comfortable chair that I'm in right now, a place to just relax and go into digestion mode and maybe reach for the remote control and turn your favorite television show on.
Well, I think that the deer over right here on campus, I think that they like to watch traffic when they're digesting, because I often see them under the trees right next to the faculty parking lot, and I'll see a couple of does and 3 or 4 fawns, and they're just relaxing in the grass. They're laying there. They don't bother to get up, and they just do. They just seem to be watching the people and watching the cars and letting people watch them, and they seem to be completely relaxed.
Perfect example, and probably no better example, because deer often will browse for a while and then literally lay down, and with their interesting digestive system, they'll lay down and digest food for quite some period of time. The same thing is true of reproductive habitat. Certain animals have certain places where they need to spawn. Fish in certain parts of the ocean at the major channels or passes. And then nursery habitat, a place for those youngsters to actually have a safe environment for them to grow up and live in the early developmental stage of their life. Our tidal marshes are a great example of that, where the small fish are born in the ocean, drift into the bay, hide in the marshes, and in the fall begin to drift back out on the tides. So when you have all those pieces in place, just as when you have all those places in your home well accounted for, that's high quality habitat. That means wildlife flourishes if they have good feeding habitat, lounging habitat, reproductive habitat, nursery habitat. But if one of them disappears, if you lose your kitchen, if the tornado blows through and you wake up one morning and you don't have access to food, then your habitat becomes degraded. And then if several of those rooms or several of those areas begin to disappear, then you really begin to have a significant compromise in habitat. It's not high quality any longer, and oftentimes populations begin to decline, as can be the case in some of these wildlife species that we're talking about here today.
Now, I want you to tell us about that wonderful relationship that we saw between the breeding habitat of our wading birds and the breeding habitat of an alligator.
Well, yeah, it turns out that they often overlap. And in this case particularly, there's an association between herons and egrets. It turns out that the herons and egrets seek out nesting alligators. So mother alligators are one of the few reptiles in the world that have a strong mothering instinct, a maternal instinct. So the alligators build a nest, collect mud and twigs and vegetation, lay their 30 eggs in it. And then a heron and egret will try to find trees above the nesting alligator to build their nests in. They do that for a reason, and it's because the mother alligator protects her nest from scavengers, and the herons and egrets get the protection of the alligator below should a raccoon or a rat snake or a scavenger swim to that nesting island and try to eat the rookery eggs in the colony of bird nests.
Yeah, they got to get past the alligator first.
They got to get past the alligator first. So there is that association. There's an overlap, and there's somewhat of a mutual benefit.
Well, yeah, because I'm assuming that now and then the birds, somebody falls out of the nest, and they get a little bird dessert down below in the alligator family.
That's right.
And do baby alligators eat meat like grown-up alligators do?
They do, and they do right away. And as an alligator, what you eat depends on what size you are. So at birth, alligators are 8 or 10 inches long, and they mainly eat insects and small fish. As they get bigger, they take larger prey items all the way up to those big adult nesting animals, which may eat white-tailed deer, large prey items.
Wow. So alligators actually eat white-tailed deer?
I've seen it a number of times in Almanac Bayou. And as apex predators, that's one of the primary roles that they play. As we've mentioned, alligators and large apex predators keep the balance. They help to keep wildlife populations in check.
That is just fascinating. Do you think that all the work on preserving habitat that you've been involved with has increased the population of animals in Almanac Bayou since in the time you've been there?
Well, it's not just increased the population, it's increased the diversity. And the diversity index is one of those things that ecologists look at kind of as a biological indicator to determine the health of a natural area. And one of those key biological indicators is the presence of those predators, the apex predators. And diversity of birds, diversity of predator birds, diversity of all these other animals that we've talked about, the alligator, the otter, those animals, they're relatively recent returns. They used to be here, but because we have an undisturbed area set aside, because we've done significant ecological restoration to the natural areas, because it's surrounded by such a large metropolitan area, it's an island ecosystem that really kind of has a greenhouse effect for life, and that it concentrates life in a relatively small area, because so much around us has been so dramatically disturbed as the form of our development of urbanization, of industrialization, of the businesses that we've built that we all enjoy.
Yeah, but they don't have any place to live anymore, so they're coming to live at your place.
That's right.
Yep.
So when we talk about alligators, one of the things that we have talked about over time here has been how their population has recovered. And one of the things that has helped those populations recover has been the research that we've done on those animals there. Alligators are very misunderstood, as many predators are. People are afraid of alligators, and oftentimes fear is driven by misunderstanding.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that research helps us to do, is to better understand life. And we have been fortunate enough for us to do a number of different projects researching wildlife at the Nature Center. But one of those fascinating ones was done on alligators at the Nature Center.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of the first pieces of video I ever saw about the Nature Center with you. Was this wonderful piece about alligator research that I think Texas A&M was a Texas A&M graduate student who was conducting that project.
Yeah, we partnered with Texas A&M University, and one of the things that we were interested in studying is where do alligators go? What do they do? Are they getting into trouble? Alligators in Almanac Bayou are urban alligators. So we think about, an urban wilderness. If you have urban predators, that means alligators are coming into contact with people with some frequency where we are. So hopefully through a better understanding and a better outreach and education program, alligators and people can coexist. Because anywhere in the world, apex predators only exist if people allow them to, because they can be dangerous to people.
Right.
If we don't understand and develop a way for us to live together, those types of interactions that create problems often arise. So one of the more exciting research projects that we've recently undertaken has been with Texas A&M University, and we've also partnered with the City of Pasadena cable TV channel to produce a video short segment as part of the Bayou City Eco Almanac that's going to take a look at some of that research effort.
Believe it or not, there's been very little research done on the American alligator.
Alligators were an endangered species for many years, and due to the appropriate environmental regulations that protected them and the habitat that they depend on, they made a recovery and have over the decades slowly recovered here in Almanac Bayou.
It's always good to respect them and give them their space because they can be dangerous.
If you do use respect and common sense when you're paddling in Almanac Bayou, you keep a safe distance, you don't feed alligators. It's a very beautiful experience to be in water that has that complete assembly of all of the animals, including those big apex predators.
If you stay out of their way and you don't harass them or anything like that, then you have absolutely nothing to worry about.
Never had an incident with one. And I come out here a lot, probably twice a week.
Alligators every summer build a nest on the high, dry land.
There's some tracks here on the bank and some claw marks where she's been pulling herself up the bank.
Female alligator generally stays very close to it.
That's probably when they're the most dangerous, is during the nesting season. Female alligator in the trap.
Got to be one we've already caught.
I think it is.
She had been in the trap before, so this is actually the second time she got trapped.
This one had, I guess, knocked the transmitter off.
They could be on the brink pretty quickly again if they're not well understood and properly managed.
By collecting this data, we can better manage the species, make it easier to make decisions to conserve them for future generations.
You think all we have to do is recrimp, huh?
That's probably all we're going to have to do, but...
So we ought to go ahead and pre-cut our wire links and have all our material ready to go here. Cord is the man that really has the extensive amount of experience handling alligators.
Just in this study alone, I have over 200 animals tagged, including the ones with the transmitters.
You got to stay on your toes. You got to use quick, common judgment, good sense, common judgment in the process of it. And if you think it's not safe, you just got to let it all go and try again another day.
As soon as she got out of the pipe, nobody on the team missed a beat. We were right on her and had her restrained. Somebody hold this rope. It's important to keep calm. Once you start panicking and questioning your decisions, that's whenever you can get in trouble.
I have a great amount of respect for what he does because he made it look easy today, but that's because Cord has really handled a lot of alligators through the process of this study.
We've tagged her with a radio telemetry transmitter,
which allows us to actually track the movement of the animals. So it lets us establish the range of where they're going and how they're behaving.
It doesn't hurt. It's attached through to the scutes on the back of her neck, which is made out of bone, and there's not much feeling in it. And so it's a pretty non-invasive way of tagging them.
The data is really critical because we really don't have much of a handle on what alligators are doing here or how many of them that there are here on Almanac Bayou.
It's important to get in there and do things like that to be able to collect this data. It's the only way you're going to get it, is to get down and get dirty.
we really don't know exactly how much alligators move around. So it's important information to help us understand the species and to help ensure that we manage the population adequately.
Mark, that's a lot closer than most people want to get to an alligator, I think.
Yes, no doubt. That's a pretty special experience and not recommended for just the average person.
Yeah.
But if you do want to have a closer experience and get out on the water, you can join us on one of our pontoon boat tours and probably get a pretty good picture to take home also. So it turns out that given the right habitat, some of the most beautiful and iconic wildlife species not just exist, but thrive right in the largest, one of the metropolitan areas that we have in the country.
Yeah, you don't have to go to Florida or to Montana to see alligators or to see 10-point bucks or to see wonderful wildlife. All you have to do is come down to the Bayou Nature Center and take a look around, and you're probably going to see some really beautiful creatures.